Welcome to the Phase Initiator webinar. My name is Jason Pittman. I'm a cost and scheduling engineer at Jackson TSC. Myself and Kristen Twiddle from finance were the business owners for the development of Pi. We worked with several individuals in the department to develop the requirements for Pi. And looking at the screen, you can see the different areas that were involved. Phase Initiator will replace MFOS as part of the Sigma rollout. MFOS was used to initiate phases and send the initiated phases to federal highways for obligation. Due to Sigma, Pi was created to handle the initiation portion of what was previously done in MFOS, and then the obligation portion will be done in Sigma. Phase Initiator assembles data from MDOT project systems such as JobNet, ECO, and AASHTOWare. It then submits to Sigma. Pi will allow MDOT to initiate and revise job phases and submit to Sigma for approval and obligation of funding for that phase. There's a number of roles in Pi. A majority of those roles will either be read-only or the phase initiator role. Anyone that will be submitting phases for initiation will have the phase initiator role. The program control role will be limited to a few people in finance that will have the authority to send back initiations for reasons that require modifications to then be sent back to Sigma. The Pi application will be accessed through the MI login. To use Pi, you will have to subscribe through MI login for access. You will be assigned a role by the system manager at the time of subscription. The Phase Initiator application is scheduled to go live on October 4th in conjunction with the Sigma launch. After it goes live, the system will be administered by Mark Schulich and Chris Tennis. Two ways to access job phases in Pi. One by entering an actual job number, and the other by searching by job type. So in the first example here, we entered job number 200777 and selected search, and the job list then will be shown for that job number, showing the phases for that job number. You can also do a job type search by searching trunk line jobs or local jobs, multimodal, by selecting from the drop down. In this example, the trunk line job type was selected, and the list will come up with all trunk line jobs, and then you can further filter your search by using the top line. We'll get into a little more detail in a demo that we're going to do shortly.
In Pi, in addition to searching by job number, you can also search by job type. You select the drop-down arrow and you pick whichever job type you would like to search by. Pick trunk line and then hit search. You can then use the filter boxes below to filter your results even further. If you want to search for just PE phases, you could type PE in the job number and phase box. You could also pick the drop down box for status and pick all obligated PE phases. In any field that has a filter box, you can use that to further filter your results. So for major route, control section number, major county, initiator, updated by, project manager, and the operational status. We're going to show how to search and view a job with a read-only role. So as previously shown, you can type in the job number to search. And we're going to look at the construction phase. After selecting the link to the job number and phase, you are brought to the job screen. The job screen has basic job information. Most of the information comes from JobNet. There's some award and letting dates that come from AP Precon, and the environmental information comes from ECO. If you select next, you're taken to the phase screen. The phase screen has additional information from JobNet, such as the FinSys and the STIP cycle, PODI information. The funding initiator is populated by whoever initiated the job in PI. The federal project number, authorized date, and financial status all are populated based on information that comes back from Sigma after the job is obligated. Project end date is originally the scheduled obligation date in JobNet. When the job gets submitted to Sigma, 3 years is added, and that is the date that shows once the job comes back as obligated. There's also information that the initiator fills in for right-of-way. Anyone other than a read-only user can enter a comment. All comments entered for the phase will be displayed along with the date they were created and any information that was in them. If you select next, you will go to the phase line item screen. This screen contains similar information to what you would see on the line item screen in MFOS. You'll see your line items, categories, with the estimated amounts, the amounts that were authorized, and your cost to date amount per line item and category. You can then use the cost to date and compare it to the authorized amount to determine if any additional funds are needed. Comments can also be entered at the line item levels. If any were available, they would display below.
I will now demonstrate how to initiate a PE phase. So in the job number field, I'll enter the job number. So select search. So then I would like to initiate the PE phase for this job number. As you can see, the status right now is new phase. So I will select the PE phase. In the job screen, prior to initiation, you can see that this is in the Detroit area. So the urban area is filled in, similar to what you would have done in MFOS. You can also see that the environmental information is populated from ECO. So when you're ready to start initiation, select the initiation button. And then now you can see that initiation is pending. So on the job screen, you would fill in if there's a disaster area for this project or Indian reservation, you would select from the drop down if those are applicable to this job. So then you select the next button to move to the phase screen. In this area, you can add a comment if you would like, if it makes sense for this project, simply by selecting the add comment button, and you can type in your comment. When you do that, just select save, and then it will show that the comment was added on this date. These comments can be edited. You can add additional comments here if you would like. So once you're complete with that. If you want to add comments, then you'll hit the next button to go to the phase line item screen. So to add the line item for this phase, you select the add button. Because this is a PE phase, you will select preliminary engineering. This project has federal participation, so in the federal participation pull down, you select participating. Preliminary engineering for the federal improvement type is already populated. And then you would fill in your amount. As you can see from the program phase budget here, it is $300,000. So for this phase, you would program it or initiate it for that amount of money. So based on the pro rata for this project, 8185 federal, 1815 state, the funding split is set based on those amounts. So you can see the programmed phase budget of $300,000 matches the phase total of $300,000. And then if everything is ready, select submit. And then here you can see that the submittal process was successful, and now it shows that the initiation was submitted. One thing to note, there is a validation on STEP approval and environmental clearance. If those validations are not met, it will not allow you to initiate that phase, very similar to MFOS. Finally, just to point out that the user guides are available on all the screens. Just select the help pull down, and the user guides are listed. Depending on what type of project you're working on, you can select any of the 4 guides that will walk you through the process for working in Pi. That concludes the Pi webinar. At this point, we will now answer questions that you may have.
Go ahead and type them in, or you can ask on the phone.
Someone asked a question about what you need to do to gain access for read-only. If you had query-only access in MFOS, you will automatically have read-only access in Pi. If you need to request read-only access, you can do so after October 4th through my login.
So the obligation of construction phases is similar to PE. There's a little more involved because you could have more line items and categories to deal with, but it is very similar.
Someone has requested that we go back to the slide showing the relationship of Pi to Sigma. We will try to get that pulled up. And while he's pulling that one up, we're going to answer the question about what happens if the environmental information isn't populated. You need to work with the environmental area in ECO to get that information updated, as you would now in MFOS. It's the same edits that were in MFOS. So the screen is back on for Margaret's question on showing the relationship between Pi to Sigma, how the two interact for obligation. Pi is the system where you will send the initiation request. Sigma will then take that request, add the financial information, and submit the request over to Federal Highway if it is a federal project. And then Pi will read the obligation back from Sigma. There was a question on if every job will have a phase designation in the line item screen. screen is bi-phase. So yes,
You'll have different screens, or you'll have the job and phase screens for each of the phases. So you won't be dealing with phases, different phases in the same screen. You will be working on one phase at a time, just like you do in MFOS.
No, the question is, will PMs need to obligate construction phases? That will still be done by specs and estimates as it is currently done for LAT projects.
Construction phases, like Kristen said, will be done by specs and estimates, just like MFOS. So really, the process that you're following now will be the same process. You'll just be using PI instead of MFOS for the initiation portion. The videos for each of the webinars, today's webinar, and then we have a similar webinar next week, will be posted. We will put it in the same location that the user guides are posted. So you can just select the help from the help pull down to get those videos.
Eric, you had asked if someone else initiates a phase and doesn't submit it, the system admin will have the ability to go in and change that initiator to somebody else if someone else needs to work on it before it was submitted.
The presentation, like I said just a minute ago, we will post the video from the webinar, so it will have the presentation in there. We can post the presentation video on there as well. Lynn, the construction phases, the initiation will be submitted through specs and estimates like it is today, and then the obligation then will go through Sigma. So no additional work for the PMs for that with the new application.
Rebecca's question regarding multimodal, we had a testing session. I'm not sure what the ability to test any further would be. I think that was the opportunity to do so.
We're basically going to production as we speak, and doing some final testing early next week, but we are essentially in production now, so testing is done. So we'll be live here in a little over a week.
This is Octavia. I have a question about the password. Will you use your same login as you do every day to get into it?
Yes. Yep, you use your same login.
Yeah, it will be the same way that you access JobNet. You'll go through the MI login, and when it's available, the PI application will show up on your home page. So you would just select the PI application just like you would for JobNet.
Okay, so we don't have to, it's going to automatically push onto our computers.
If you were previously an MFOS user, yes, it will automatically sign you up for that. If for some reason the first week of October it's not showing up, you can go through the process of requesting access through MI login.
Okay, thank you.
Betsy, you said you're not seeing it show up. You will not see it show up until October 2nd. And you should already be assigned your appropriate roles. However, you're not be asked to do anything until October 3rd. Oh yeah, the application doesn't have to be pushed. It'll just automatically show up in your My Login on October 2nd. If you are an MFOS user and your roles were converted over. If you don't see it on October 2nd, you can contact m.pi in your Outlook. It's m.pi@michigan.gov, and the system admins will set up your access.
So any questions or issues you have, just send an email to m.pi, and that will go to our email that we have for PI, and we can address those.
completion date is changed in JobNet, will this transfer to Pi? And the answer is no. Once the job is obligated, we will use the date that is coming from Sigma. However, I think it's department policy that if there's a significant change in the completion date, you should contact finance to make us aware of this. Yeah, and that's the way it's currently working in MF West. The question was asked if old phases like C and D are going away and now we will use PE. The answer is yes. We are pulling our information for job and phase from JobNet, so we will use the same phase indications as JobNet, such as PE for a C phase. And the blank phases are now using the NI, scope, op, EPE, all the new phases that were established with JobNet.
Richard, if you are checking dollars spent, you would use Pi. And you'll go to the phase that you want to look at. So yes, you will be using Pi.
One thing to know with that is it's not going to be as real time as MF West currently is. It's going to be at least a day before the expenditures come back in from Sigma.
I had a question regarding the webinar next week. It is covering the same material, so you do not need to log in for that one.
Someone asked where the link to the user guides are. We will pull up a screenshot to show you. It's going to be under the help section once you get into Pi. And again, we will try to make the user guides available via the Monday memo before it goes live. I think the screen's up on now, and you can see the help link in the upper right corner. If you select the help link, the user guides and these webinars will show up there. As you can see there, and then the webinars will also be posted in this location. The question is, will each region have a system admin? And the answer is no. Mark Schulich and Chris Tennis are the system admins for Pi. So any issues will be handled by them in their area via the m.pi@michigan.gov email address. Someone's asking about going through how to get access to the Pi program. It'll, on October 2nd, when you log into your My Login, it should show up as a link in your My Login access. We're going to try to pull up the My Login window. Yep. So here's the My Login window. This would be an example of what would look like when you get in on October 2nd. Any applications you have access to should be there, and you should see Phase Initiator in the list as it is here. If you don't have access, you could go up to the Request Access button, and you search for Pi in the list of MDOT applications. It looks like it's not in here. I don't know if it's because of the... Okay, because Jason's already subscribed to Pi, it's not showing up in the list, but if you were not subscribed, it would show up here. And once you request access, then that'll go to the system admin, and they will assign the appropriate roles. Yeah, and we're in the QA environment on the screen there, so it may look a little different when it goes live. And then the question was also, it's not showing up. It will not show up until October 2nd as a list of options. Someone asked if this webinar would be available, and we will try to make that available in the link that will be provided in the in the Monday memo as well.
Question regarding JobNet and Planisware. If the job is not approved yet, you won't be able to do anything in Pi with the project. Once the job is approved, and if you meet the you meet the environmental clearance and step dates, then you would be able to move forward with initiation. Right. In current fiscal year, if you're making a change that affects the fiscal year prior to initiation of the phase, then you'll need to wait until that change is approved in JobNet before you can go into Pi and make that change or initiate the phase. That will get more into approvals in step years. It really depends on the change that you're making. As far as the webinars go, we will do the Monday memo here in the hopefully next week or the week after. We will post the link to the presentation, but you will need access to Pi to get to the user guides and the webinars. If it does become an issue where people need to access those prior to being in Pi, send a email request to m.pi and we'll see what we can do as far as posting them in another location. So as far as template managers, your functions right now are going to remain the same. We are looking at a process improvement that will happen here in the very near future to look at some changes department-wide. So we really don't have information on those changes yet, but when we go live in October, it will be essentially the same functions that you have using MFOS.
There's a question when obligating a job, who do we contact if we need help? You can contact or entering in the email address in the chat box. You want to contact m.pi, and that email box will be monitored for questions. Also, you can select the contact button in Pi, and there will be a form that pops up to send an email there as well. The screen shows the contact button that can be selected. There was a question if Pi will automatically recognize if a phase is Act 51 eligible, and the answer is no. It'll be the same. Section estimates will determine it the same way they do now. We don't see any additional questions in the chat box. If we missed your question, let us know. Otherwise, we will stick around in case you have more questions.
So if you have any questions, you can type them into the chat box, and we'll go through and answer those for you. You can also, if you wanted to ask a question over the phone, if you select *6, I believe you can unmute your phone as well.
Is this available right now for us to request in the system wherever we go? It's the same thing as where we go to get JobNet, correct?
Yes, it would be the same location.
Okay, and it's available now or not until it's live?
Not until next week.
Okay.
Probably Monday or Tuesday next week.
Okay.
We did, anybody that was an active MFOS user, you were preloaded, so next week you should be able to access Pi since you were already a user.
You think we'll get like an email email notification or anything, like a reminder?
Nope.
Okay.
There was a request to walk through pulling up an existing job and reviewing CE expenses. And to go along with that, Lynn asked, how do you request an increase to CE after it's obligated? The process to request an increase is the same as it is now. You will send an email to myself, Kristen Twiddle, and I will request the obligation increase as we do now. We will pull up the system so we can try to see where you can look at the CE expenses. So if you search, you can either search by your job type or a job number as we showed in the presentation. Find an example here. Trying to find a job that's not just test data, that might be an actual job from production here. So once you pull up your job, if you're just reading only and only want to see your CE expenditures, you can click on the phase line item link. Oh, sorry, that was not a good example. We are in the test environment for this demo, so. This looks like a better example. On this job, you can see we have here's your construction engineering line item. You can see your authorized amount, and that is populated from Sigma, and your cost to date amount is here. This job currently has 0 cost to date, but there were expenditures. You would see those there. You can compare it to your authorized amount and see if additional funds are needed. And then, like I said, you would just send an email to myself and ask for the increase. Tracy, I'm not sure if I understand your question on the time frame finance uses to add a job. Can you clarify that? Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, I didn't realize everybody was muted. So in the webinar, it was mentioned that 3 years is being added by finance. At least I thought that's what I heard, but when information came out, a year ago or so, it was a 2-year time frame added to the end construction completion date. Did something change with that?
Yes, we made that decision in finance to change it to 3 years.
Okay,
I think
that's what I thought I heard, so.
Issues, so yes, that has changed to 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Jim, you had a question under what category is office or rail projects to be obligated? I'm not sure if I understand your question. Most rail projects will be obligated as multimodal job type. And Dave Mistel had received some training and got into the system. Any projects that are be funded by Federal Highway will also go through PI, multimodal, and highway jobs will go through PI for initiation. Does that answer your question?
Lex, you had asked about a QA environment. We're actually not going to have time for that because we'll be going live next week. So unfortunately, time-wise, we didn't have time to do that. MFOS. It's really very simple to use. It shouldn't take much time for you to get acquainted with the new system.
And the training guides are in the system under the help link, and this webinar will also be posted there as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you. For a rookie, I'm afraid of breaking things, you know, and I thought it would be good to have the QA or the test environment available. But maybe I agree, it is simple. It seems simple, that is, being training so quick. So, anyway, thank you.
Yeah, especially for the PMs, if you're the non-construction phases, it's very straightforward. The construction phase initiation, which is typically done by specs and estimates, is a little more involved, but normally only specs and estimates would get into those situations.
And the training guides and the webinar were posted in the Monday memo this week, so if you want to go back and click on those links and go through the webinar at a slower pace, you're welcome to do that as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
And if you, on the screen here, like we said in the webinar, under the help pull down, that is where you will get those user guides. We can also put the both webinars with the questions in that same location as well. So it'll be in there middle of next week.
Eric, you had a question. If the phase has more than one funding source, can you add those breakouts when initiating a phase? It's similar to how they obligate the jobs now. We'll get the multiple FinSys from JobNet. If we go to the phase screen here, you'll see the FinSys. And this one just has one. It's just an NH FinSys. But if there were multiple FinSys assigned in JobNet, they would show there. Usually when different funding sources are needed, the initiator will add a comment. And then on the line item screen, it shows the funding breakdown. This particular job is just funded federal, state. If there was local, initiators could add local fund sources.
Mind if I jump in again? It's Lex.
Yep.
So, the Monday memo took me to a site, but it looks like it's news and events. Doesn't appear to be a constant phase initiator site. Is there a phase initiator site or will it all be just?
Yeah, there's not an actual PI website. It'll be all housed in the system, which you'll be able to access on October 2nd in the help link.
Okay. So, like the webinar will be there, this webinar? And
Yep, the webinar will show up, but I believe the link in the Monday memo will be active for a while.
thank you.
Yep.
There's a question regarding STEP population and contacting Mark Kalua. It'll still be the same process. I guess my recommendation would be before you are ready to initiate a phase or submit a phase for initiation, you should go into JobNet and verify that your environmental clearance for that phase and the STEP is taken care of because you will not be able to initiate the phase if those are not due.